all that to say that this idea of around creating, like, why are you here, should be connected to someone or something outside of yourself. And I think that's the part that's been lost and isn't as a parent in this kind of TikTok influencer, likes driven kind of world. Today. I think we're gonna do a great job.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Modern Man Podcast, where we connect men in pursuit of their potential. Join us as we embrace discomfort, cultivate community, and put wind in each other's sails. If you're ready to take your personal and professional growth to the next level, be sure to like and subscribe and share the podcast. And don't forget to check out the Noble Knights Mastermind Group, where you will find the support, accountability, and mentorship you need to achieve your goals. Join us and become a part of a community of like-minded men on a mission to improve themselves and elevate their capacity for life. I'm excited to get some wind in our sails today from my guest, podcast strategist, growth consultant, but host of the Modern Masculinity Podcast, father, husband. I'm so happy to have Hector Santiesteban on the show. What's going on, Hector?
What is up, my man? Thanks for having me. And you nailed my name, by the way. That does not happen. Yeah. So I appreciate it, but I would have loved you the same.
I appreciate it. Yeah, man. Hey, listen, you gotta swing. You missed all the shots you don't take. But I want to make sure that our audience gets to hear from your own words how you introduce yourself, because I could say the titles, but that only kind of gives a glimpse into a man. It only gives the glimpse into someone's story. So I want to give you the floor really quick, let you introduce yourself, tell the people who you are, what you do, and then we can kind of hop more into the discussion.
Yeah, man. I am a husband to my wonderful wife, Shailene. I have two great kids, Cash and Kai, who are 3 and 4. And when I'm not with them, I spend my time running a podcast production company, and I host a few shows. One about podcasting, another that we're about to launch called Modern Masculinity, which is where we connected. And most of my day is spent, at least right now, in service of others. And I think that's I think that is a plight that men take on. And it's kind of the challenge is so much of our identity is wrapped up into it. And then when we actually get what we said we wanted, then it's kind of like, be careful what you wanted, or be careful what you wish for a little bit. Yeah. So, when you say, like, who am I, most of my days, like, how do I be the best husband? How do I be the best dad? And then, how do I be the best entrepreneur, or be the best provider? All those other roles that so many people have identified with in terms of professionally, right? Like, usually when you introduce yourself, it's like, I'm a realtor, or I'm a whatever, like, that has, in the last several years, has quickly become, my professional identity has become less and less of my whole identity. Yeah. And I'm in the middle of that.
Man, that's huge. And man, I knew this was going to be dope, because we're jumping there really, really quick, because you started it with, in service of others. I think as men, it feels so good to be needed, and it feels so good to provide value. Like, that's one thing I know. Like, I'm an affirmations guy. Like, words of affirmations is one of my love languages. I want to hear good job. I want to be able to help others. And I think a lot of guys resonate with that. But to your point, man, we see that, we focus on that, we chase it so much that we often, man, I feel like sometimes we look for the validity in money, or we look for the validity in titles, and those help us feel important. But I guess the relationships and some of the other things that also fill our cup can be left empty. Talk a little bit, because, like, I feel like you kind of touched on that. I want you to elaborate more on that, service of others, but kind of be careful what you wish for.
Well, because when you get it, you can't complain about it. Yeah. Like, you got it. So here it is. Why are you, and I find myself, right, like, I have two kids. I mentioned they're 3 and 4, and I do my wife. She travels a lot for work, and she works events, and so a lot of times she's out at night, and so I'm working, and so we kind of work opposite schedules. But I'm taking the kids and getting them ready in the morning, and I'm also putting them to bed, and so there's a lot. I don't want to say it's a lot, but there were times where I felt like, man, this is a lot, and I felt like it was more than. It felt like it was more than it should be, and and from that perspective, I felt like, why am I doing all of this, or why, like, I have this, and it could be as like this victim mentality, but it wasn't coming from a place of service. It wasn't coming from look at all the time you get to spend with them. Look at all of the wisdom, the lessons, look at all the experiences you get to share. Look at it from that. And when I come at it from that place, right, like then those moments are much easier, but it's a battle. And it's like when your energy is low, or you didn't get a lot of sleep, or, they're kind of going through their own emotional
turmoil or something.
The word that came to mind was insurrection. Right? It was like, because I was trying, like, it's not this birth. It's not this, like, they're going through they're being taken over by these emotions and having no idea, no tools or no skill sets to be able to manage that. And then, I'm a very energetically, let's call it, porous person.
Yeah. And
so, I receive a lot of that energy. And so if I take, early on, I would take that on, and they were freaking out, and I would freak out. Right.
Yeah.
It would kind of, we would all it wouldn't be good. And so I think I'm kind of going all over the place here, but like,
I'm picking it up though. Yeah.
That's a little bit about, like, when I say, like, be careful what you wish for, is because it's like in those moments we can lose appreciation and gratitude for them, and then we lose kind of the magic of it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like,
I think life's gotten heavy as time's gone on, and that's just me talking from my personal experience, right? Where you say be careful what you wish for. I can look and I see my wife, my dog, I see the family, I see the life we've built, and it's a blessing. Like, it feels great to have all that, but, with all that comes the responsibility, comes the weight of it, comes the sustaining of the life that you've built. And what's great is, like, okay, this is awesome. This looks great, but, now there's a weight to it. And I think we take on some of the burdens of the people that depend on us, right? It's like, man, I got to take on this. I got to take on that. And you end up finding out, I spend most of my time from when I wake up to when I go to bed being reliable for others, right? Like, I'm the rock, right? Or I gotta hold this down, right? And then sometimes we spend so much time being the rock for others, being the foundation for others, taking on that energy, right? We also forget to identify, man, where do I unload this?
Right. Yeah.
Where do I unload this?
I want to go back, and I think I should say that the be careful what you wish for is probably an old paradigm, right? Because I don't think careful is the right word. I think it's be intentional what you wish for.
Yeah.
Right? To be and with that, careful is I think that it's too scarcity minded, right? But if you're intentional with what you wish for, then all of a sudden you can be appreciative of it. But the next thing that you brought up was like this unloading thing, and man, I can't tell you. Just like that was I don't even know. That was probably 80% of the reason why I was excited about having this conversation. Just because I knew that me and you were going to get to chat about some real stuff that most guys don't get to ever talk about. And the act of just talking about it is such a release.
Yeah.
It's so needed. And I guess I do know why guys don't do it enough, right? Like, because it's not cool, it's weak, it's whatever, right? All the stigmas, and I think we also see women do it so well. They unload so well that we almost like, well, we're not going to do it like that, or we're not going to do it like it almost to our detriment, right? To where we wouldn't. So I hear you on that unloading part. It's so necessary.
Yeah. Well, and that's the reality of it, right? And part of the thoughts of this podcast is, we have this man, we have this responsibility within us to kind of put on this certain persona. And it's almost like we have to make it look easy. Any loyal listener to the podcast, they know about my knight in shining armor analogy. And like, I'm not trying to walk around with a perfect suit of armor. No, sir. My armor is battered, bro. Like, I'm out here fighting. I actually just sent a message to a group of my guys this morning, and here's the other half of it, right? I said, listen, guys, this is a text that could cause the insecure to hate, or it would cause the confidence to be motivated, right? So it could either be a hate or a motivate. But I said, man, I've been through it, and I know you've all been through it. We got the storms that we have. Life gets heavy at times, and I've relied on some of y'all along the way. But I just want to let you guys know, I'm feeling on fire right now. I'm coming into a season of my life where things are shaping out, things are paying off, and I'm like, bro, like, I see a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm feeling good right now, and I'm also hyper aware that this is temporary. Right? It could be another week. It could be another 2 weeks where something else is going to come heavy and something else is going to hit me in the face. But as I'm here to just tell y'all, I'm embracing the good just as much as I'm embracing the bad. Like, I'm on this ride. I think before the talk, you said vibrant, right? And I was like, I felt that so much, because vibrant is like the reds are red and the blues are blues and the greens are greens. But it's the extremes of the life that have actually given me the fulfillment, the ups and downs that have actually given me the times where I could put my hands up a screen.
Yeah. If people were to look externally, I don't know how much, like, there might have been other times where I would have had more quote unquote success, right? In the sense of, there were times where my 1099 was way bigger, right? The accolades were way bigger, right? They're all whatever. And it reminds me actually of like that Drake song Trophies, right? Because it's like, I got all of the external validation that I had needed, right? Sold all the stuff, made all the money, got all the claps, whatever. And now the last, I guess, 4 years, it's really about, my 2 or 3 human trophies, right? Of people that I've been pouring into, that at least right now you can't see any of that, like that fruit yet. It's like a tree, right? It's like an avocado tree, right? It goes dormant, and it builds its roots for years and years before any of that fruit is born. And not that your kids need to bear any fruit for it to matter, right? That's not my point. I guess that, like, for me, there's been a big conscious battle to like be okay with not seeing those results, right? Or those whatever. And also the winning, or the achievement, the accomplishment, is actually just being able to be in this fire and be in this jungle and to be able to be, not necessarily do or accomplish, but to be I've been better at being over the last 4 years. And if you were to look on from the outside, you'd be like, well, there were some things that progressed or whatever, but my ability to, navigate the moment, I think has I don't know, has improved drastically, right? But that's hard to measure externly.
What would you say was the shift that happened 4 years ago? Because for anybody listening,
Kids.
I know you mentioned, I know, well, I know that's what I was going to kind of allude to, but I mean, beforehand, career in marketing, crushing it, and then helping podcasters market their podcast, founder of Amplify Media, and then proud front row dad, right? Kids come into the picture. How has that shifted your approach to life?
Someone asked me, like, when did I get serious about being dad recently? And I was like, I was always serious about it, in the sense that I always knew that I was going to take it seriously, but it got thrust on me sooner than I would have anticipated. And so, we kind of found out we were pregnant, and it was like, oh shit. like, and And at that moment, it was like, there was a very calling up kind of moment. And so that the wheels started turning there. And then the pregnancies were so traumatic. I don't know how many times my wife like almost died like throughout the two pregnancies, or like how many times we were considering, like how many nights where we were actually, I was seriously wondering whether or not I was going to be a single dad, like where my brain was going to, okay, if worst case scenario happens, what, like, how do my practical brain was trying to think through, okay, all right, I'm moving with my parent, like all these kinds of like actual decisions that I was trying to think through, right? Because because it was so all those kinds of questions, start to bring back like the perspective of now. And so thankfully everybody's here and healthy and wonderful. And like, I don't know how we made it through. Like, there is a book and a movie about that. There's so many medical miracles that we like. I can't believe that we kept making it out of it.
Yeah.
But all that to say that you come out of that with a total new appreciation for, frankly, for people. I was a very, looking back on it prior to that, I was like very selfish, very self-centered, and probably even narcissistic. And somewhere on that spectrum, somewhere on that, on that line, I was, because I cared about how much money I was making, how much, even in my relationships, it was like, well, how much does she make me feel validated, or how cool or great do I feel when I'm with her? Right. Like it was a very much a, what am I getting out of this relationship? And all of a sudden you have a kid, and you have two kids, and you have, these people who are relying on you. And it's like, as a dad, like there is nothing that you're getting out of that. Like there is nothing that their expectation, or is their expectation of them giving to you, is none. Like they have zero shit. They give zero shits or fucks about what you want. And it's like, that's what that's not their job. That's not, it's a really weird thing where you kind of realize these moments where you have a new appreciation for your parents, right? Or a new appreciation, because you see all of a sudden where the lack of gratitude or appreciation or whatever, but it's not their place to do that. It is their place to give you what you are missing, right? To show and to highlight whatever it is. And so that was like a really, I had to find some selflessness in me that I think was not, I don't know if it wasn't there, or I hadn't accessed it, or all of a sudden, you have some really, and then to be okay with it, and not to be bitter or resentful, or to all of a sudden start. I was someone who I would do this in my relationship, in my marriage too. And I've had to really work on not like keeping score, right? Like, oh, I'm going to rub your back, and I'm going to make you dinner, and I'm going to do all these things. And then now the score is up 3-0. So
Hector's
now you're going to have to, right. Or it's not even that I'm winning. It's like, okay, now it's time for you to put some points on the board, or like whatever. All of a sudden
balance it out,
giving with an expectation that you're going to receive. All of a sudden, as like a father, it kind of showed me how to give and give and give, with the knowing that somewhere down the line it's going to come back, right? Like it's not just going to be
I was
that
gonna say,
transaction.
Man, I appreciate your transparency there, because I'm not a father yet, and I can only imagine the process going through that. And I just want to first give you and your wife the flowers for getting through what you guys had to go through, because I can only imagine, bro. So I'm happy everyone's still here, and you guys are on this side continuing the journey. And would you mind if I challenge some of those thoughts?
Yeah,
Yeah, because it's like the reality is, you know, what we get back, man, what I've realized was kind of the thing that has always filled me up was, you know, being able to genuinely have time and presence and being myself with somebody, right? And I get that with my wife, and I don't know what it's going to be like having kids, but we talk a lot about just the idea of creating something together, right? Just like I create a piece of content, just like we're having this conversation, creating this podcast, you know, I see kind of the life that my wife and I live being, you know, art on a blank canvas. We're creating, you know, we're going to Cabo. We're going to create this experience. We're going to create these things, and then bringing somebody else in life. Yeah, listen, they're little, they don't care what you want, right? But we're giving them experiences. We're giving them I would almost say we're giving them like guidance towards life through what we've learned. And I think what we get to see is almost a reflection in a mirror of how we've lived our lives.
You are 100% correct. And I would say yes. And perhaps where I'm also coming from is my parents were, and they're great people, and I'm going to see them tonight, and they have the kids right now, and they're great grandparents. And I don't ever want to, you know, people listen to some of these podcasts and they're like, damn, Hector's parents were terrible. They're fantastic people. And they did the best. And they were even contextually, they were great parents. However, everybody from that generation was living vicariously through their kids. They were doing things and putting their kids in things for their own reasons and for their own validation. Right. Mm-hmm. It was like, I played baseball because my dad wanted me to play baseball. I did, you know, and the challenge and the problem is though, is that I thought I was doing it for me in the time and in the moment. As a kid, I felt like, you know, I was doing it for me. But when I reflect and I look back on those things, I was probably, you know, I was actually looking for validation from my parents. I was actually looking for, you know, for that. And so all that to say that.
Do you think your kids want validation from you?
And where I would push back is I would not want them to, and it's a dance, right? It's like, I would not want them to rely on validation or to seek validation from anybody other than themselves. And it's something that we're going through with, like, I'm going through this right now at 31, where, you know, so many of the issues I've ever had in relationships came from me seeking that validation in somebody else. Right. And so with my 4-year-old, you know, I'm already having conversations about, like, you know, he's got the dude pulls. He's 4 years old and he's already got a girlfriend. He's already getting in trouble for being too physical. I mean, the kid, I can't get. It's hard to be mad at him. I don't know. It's like,
good but job, in any son, case, tone it down.
yeah, exactly. Come on, you know. But to that point, I'm already having conversations with, you know, you need to, like, validation doesn't come from anybody else, and the moment that you start looking for it from other people, I think it's just a really slippery slope. You know, Of course it feels good. Of course it might feel good, but so does a lot of things that are actually not good for us, you know? And so that's a weird dance, right? Because do they want validation from me? Like, yeah, absolutely. I would imagine so. And I think that I try and give that, but it's an interesting thing that you talk about of, like, where does the line get drawn, right? And how does someone become too reliant on that validation and stuff?
It reminds me of a quote I just heard, and man, I wrote it down. It hit really hard, and kind of like, I feel like a lot of parents, you always hear them say, you know, I just want to give my kids the things I never had. I want to give my kids the things I never had. And I forgot who said it, was Jet Li or whatnot. They said, no, I want to teach my kids the things I never knew. Right. And it's almost like, by doing that, and even by teaching your son, and I'd also address, like, 3 and 4. First of all, like, you guys went through the ringer because 1 year apart, that means you had 2 under 2. You know, that's crazy. That's no sleep.
No, there's none.
That's terrible.
No.
2 under 2. And then so 3 and 4, I will say, hopefully, I think you're towards the end of the fire with that, right? They're starting to.
We're coming out of it for sure. Yeah.
But,
it was a tough few years.
but I think the thing that I hear when you're talking about, with your 4-year-old, when you're telling him, you're helping to teach him through what you've healed in your traumas, right? Like it ran in my family until it ran into me. And right. I think the reward and the gift is, and like you mentioned, a lot of parents live through their kids vicariously. And I do think that's a lot of things that happen subconsciously by accident, but there is a matter of truth to it. You can still live through your kids vicariously, but you live through them by teaching them the things that you never knew and letting them have a better shot at life, which is almost your second chance. Like that's what they're giving you. They're giving you a second chance, bro. And that by that second chance, it's not your experience in life, but your son's going to learn the things you never knew. And you're going to be like, yo, this is where I messed up. This is where I could have done better. And, God willing, hopefully is like you get to watch the fruits of your labor with your 2 children, having a rich, prosperous life and in a way that you never had.
It's funny. I saw my best friend from high school a few months ago. One of our friends got married, and he doesn't have kids. And he was asking me, he was like, "Do you, when your kid?" Because my son was in the why phase, and he's still kind of there, but he, everything was why, and he asked me. He said, "When you are answering these questions, are you thinking about the answer you're giving him, or are you just saying whatever, right? Are you just kind of, just kind of giving an answer?" And I said, like, no, I think through every answer is crafting this kid's worldview, right? I think it's like it's a disservice when, our uncles or whoever used to say like, even silly things like if you eat a watermelon seed, it's going to grow in your belly. Like those, that's a very silly example. But those types of things where kids are listening, and so the answers that you give to these questions are actually crafting how they are seeing the world. And so the other kind of challenge was that my son would ask these things, and he would actually be curious. It would be annoying to the adult because he's 5 whys deep on, why is it wet outside? But now the kid's 4 years old, and he's got you're a meteorologist. Like he got a pretty good idea of condensation and how it works and where it comes from and where it goes. And like, the water comes up from there and it gets hot and it goes up. And like the kid is, he's brilliant. But I think that like we as men, not that the onus is a weird word because there's that load kind of thing. Responsibility maybe is a better word, but like we have that opportunity to create direction or structure or to provide those lessons like you're talking about, right? If we so choose to take the opportunity to be present in the moment. And so that was another thing that kind of came up was like, you talk about like, what are you getting back and your ability to, have a second chance that, you do have this unique opportunity to kind of craft someone's worldview. And what a scary kind of power that can be,
Yeah. And I'll also say this though, because I think about my parents and I think about my dad and, text messages I have with my dad and the relationship we have now, he and my mom too, my mom's 76, my dad's 81, I'm 35 years old when this episode comes out. The reality is I think, and you're not gonna like this, Hector, man, I gave my parents a hard time even through high school up through college, bro. But like, to see where I am at now and like a lot of the lessons they taught me have stuck with me. My parents were strict. They were hard on me, but they taught me good structure. A lot of the tension through high school and college was me crafting my own view of life and even in my early 20s. But somewhere around 23, 24, things started to click for me, thankfully. And my mom watches me in the morning. I have conversations with my mom. She's like, I'm so happy that you called and this is so great. And I feel so grateful that I have the opportunity in that time to pour into them. And I've actually spoken to both my parents on a personal level and sincerely told them thank you for the life that they've given me. All that to say is the big investment that you're making is it's probably going to require more of a payment, but the return on the investment, I can only imagine, would be insurmountable, bro.
The challenge is I also, and people are looking at this and saying, damn, that dude's an asshole. I also don't look at it like in this, like I look at it as a spiritual investment in the sense that I also am not expecting any return necessarily, at least with those, with my kids taught me this specifically, and I'm trying to learn it more, with more other people, but I'm not looking for a return in this lifetime. Right. It's like the return isn't coming to me. The return is going to our generation. Right. Like I was given, I was given, I was invested into, right. My parents, if we look at, kind of where we're the generational track that we're on, right. My parents, they're not necessarily sure they're kind of experiencing some great stuff in their retirement or whatever, but like, in the same way, that return comes generationally. And so that's also another thing that I'm looking at is like the time horizon on these quote unquote returns are much longer than what, than what I used to expect, right? In the sense of, I'm going to do something for you, and then you're going to do something for me. And then I'll do something for you, and you'll do something for me. And it was this very transactional, keeping the score, right? 15 love. It was just like this. It was very much this transactional kind of thing. Whereas, and as I'm talking about it, I'm like, Hector, you're a fucking farce. Like, because I'm not perfect with it, but in the moments where I am present, and in the moments where I am, who I see I can be, it's like, that's what I'm connected to. Is the fact that we're undoing generational, right? Like trauma, right? We're like you said, we're fixing those mistakes. And that's what I'm, focused on or looking at.
So I'm gonna mirror the question that one thing you said starting, why am I doing all this? And like, man, I had to wrap my head around a lot of that before, because I mean, I can admit my motivations have been titles, when I first started my career, I wanted to get to the top market in the country. I wanted to be on national TV. I wanted to be on the Weather Channel. I wanted to be ABC 7 New York first, and then just go national Weather Channel and just crush it. Right. But then I don't know, somewhere along the line of getting, having a wife, a dog, and thinking of a family, those don't entertain me as much anymore. Right? They'd be cool, right? But now there's a level of, that's not what's important, and that's not the reason why I do things. And I think for me, my long-term vision, kind of what you mentioned, like I love that you said, I'm not looking for a return in my lifetime. I've asked myself a lot, it's like, are you willing to put everything you have into a mission, into a goal, into a dream, into a purpose that you won't be able to be around to see? And what I kind of came to the conclusion of is yes, because I'm the result of that, right? Like my life is the result of my parents, and just being the child of two immigrant parents. My life is the result of two people leaving the country that they grew up in to live in an unfamiliar country because maybe their kids would have a better life. So I literally owe my life to someone who sacrificed theirs, or not literally like sacrificed their lives. Again, my parents are still here, but they started anew, right? And that's where I'm like, oh, okay, crap. But my life is the result of someone's sacrifice. And because of that, I'm thinking how big my sacrifice will be, the fruits that life goes. And you're so right in terms of like, bro, that is what the return is, right? You're like, bro, it's not coming to me. Like this whole parenting thing's not for me. This is for what the world gets to have.
Yeah. I was going to say something right before, and then you said something brilliant. Damn it, Ted. No, that's exactly right though. In the sense that it's not coming back to you. Right. And I think that, where I was going was that I love America, and I love capitalism, and I love, I think it's a perfect no, but like, I love what we stand for, and freedom and freedom of speech and all that sort of stuff. What I think has gotten lost though, and one it's a strong word, but one sadistic kind of expression of that is this individual, selfish, I'm the only one that matters kind of, personality, right? The almost the Sam Bankman-Fried kind of person who's just everything out for me and forget everybody else. The challenge is on the other side of that, right? That is such, well, that ideal is so out there that the collective purpose has been lost, right? That when people are saying, what's the purpose of my life? It's only about them and their career and their financial worth and even their own mental health, right? That's the one problem I run into with like this whole mental health kind of thing is it borders on the line of not insensitivity, just like an uncompassion, right? Like there's some sort of compassion that's also necessary in that conversation, right? That, to ignore, to focus on your mental health at the detriment, that doesn't mean that you get to be a jerk, what, like, that doesn't mean, that you get to hurt other people in the sake of your mental health. All that to say that this idea of around creating, like, why are you here should be connected to someone or something outside of yourself. And I think that has been, that's the part that's been lost and isn't as a parent in this kind of TikTok influencer, likes driven kind of world. It's like, what are we doing collectively for and with each other?
Yeah. What are we doing all this for?
Yeah. Because what really is the point? I don't know. I've thought a lot of, if then it's like, that's,
well,
I don't know.
I think for me, what I do it for, what I do it for is really the service of others, kind of like what you mentioned. What you're doing right now is where the fulfillment comes, man. And I think it's hard to pinpoint because at the end of the day, expectations can lead to disappointments, right? Yeah. And the expectations of, where I thought my life would be has nothing to do with where it is now, but the gratitude of where it is immensely more than where it would have been. And that's what I'm thankful for when I think of my mental health and what I pay attention to for myself and how I show up for others. It's all about what I provide and how I unload my things appropriately, set up my relationships, and, doing these episodes, having these conversations. Like, that's what I feel called to do. And I never do a call like this and then walk off feeling drained. Like, so this is like my therapy. And I found that I believe we could find ways to live our lives by identifying the things that fill up our cups. Right.
Right.
And the reality is, I think, especially for the time that you and your wife might be in, the hardest thing, and I can only imagine, is when you start that parenting journey, you got to cut off the faucet towards your cup for a little bit.
Yes.
Wholeheartedly. Okay, correct. But right. I will also say I've seen parents who are like, man, intentionality, right? Something that you said before, be intentional with what you wish for, right? I think the intentionality too is I've seen, some parents where you mentioned the great grandparents. Can you take them for a weekend? Me and my wife need an us weekend. We need an us time. All right. We can't forget to fill our cup when the time is appropriate, but there is definitely going to be the front investment in the early years of parenting. But especially I remember in high school, I remember in elementary school, parents would go on vacation. The kids would be with grandma, or the kids would be at a friend's house because the parents needed that weekend. The parents needed that little getaway for themselves because, bro, it gets heavy. So we can pour into others, but when we talk about mental health, it's not necessarily, some people might use it as an excuse to kind of like, push others away or act how they want to act. But others, it's about setting up healthy boundaries and be like, listen, I need to take care of myself I need a weekend. I need a couple of days so I can come back better for you. And I think, bro, I think you guys hit that nail on the head in terms of like, man, what we are doing is going to be for the world, not for us.
Yeah, well, grandparents are fantastic for that. And the challenge is that people, and I say people, but parents, they lose themselves, right? And I think it was probably Grant Cardone who, and people have mixed feelings about Grant, but he said something like, "Are you going to make your kids the reason that you don't achieve your dreams? Like, are you going to tell your kid, like, Dad, or like when your kid asks, like, Dad, why didn't you go after your dreams? Are you going to tell him, well, son, you came along." Like up. You're the reason. You're the reason. I was like, yeah, exactly. I was like, damn, there's no way in hell I could say, well, yeah, the reason I'm mediocre is you, son.
Everything was going good till you got here.
and despite how, I don't know how true that may sound, but despite the impact that kids have on that trajectory, like, so what? Like even still, it's been a call up, but a lot of parents, they don't see that as a call up. They miss that opportunity. They get resentful, and then that's kind of what happens when you start living not vicariously through your kids, right? Where you start, kind of going too much into that. So
yeah.
I think it's important for people to be chasing their own, right, while kind of cultivating, that of others, maybe is a way to put it.
Well, speaking of chasing your own, while pouring into others, we're coming to the end of our time, man. This was a deep conversation. I got to be honest.
I'm sorry it went all over, my man.
No, it didn't. It went deep, which is exactly what I think we've been missing on this podcast for a while, bro. So I really appreciate you. But I also want to make sure that people can understand that they can get more conversations like this on the Modern Masculinity Podcast, right? So I want to make sure that folks can connect with you, follow you, and get more of the work you're doing, because it's not only do you have that podcast, but you also have the marketing agency helping folks market their podcast. A lot of services that you could provide that folks can kind of connect with you and find out about. But I want you to make sure that you can share your links, brother.
Yeah. Well, if you're listening to this, we got connected through a mutual friend, and I was like, damn, he's already doing the show that I wanted to do. But if you like this, we have another show that's should be launched by the time that this hits out. It's called Modern Masculinity, and Ted came on and graced us with his wisdom as well. And similarly, we have these conversations, and that's just because I think that these aren't happening enough, and I'm excited to kind of get thrown into this world a little bit and to see that there are guys like you and guys like that we're having on the show talking about this stuff, but I still don't think that it's happening enough, and not at the rate at which, I just think that we can really affect some change. So if you like conversations like this, check out Modern Masculinity, do a search on all of the, all the podcast platforms as well. You should find it. And then if you want to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter at Hector_podcast. And I'm also on LinkedIn at Hector Santiesteban.
And the content you put out on LinkedIn is nothing short of fire for like podcasters, anyone looking for, marketing tips. Like I love what you put out. So you don't miss. So definitely make sure to hit those links. I'll have those in the show notes and all that. I usually say, hey, this last question is a heavy one, but like I said, I loved it from the get-go. We jumped in head first. So, and maybe your answer would be different than parenting or whatnot, but I always ask this at the end is, what is something you've seen or something that's happened to you in your life that shapes the way you view the world as a man?
Yeah. It would be, having my son, and it's just, when you have another life that's fully responsible for you, you start to make sure that you start checking all the boxes that you left unchecked before then. And because it's easy, the easiest person sometimes to give up on or to go light on is ourselves, right? But when you have another person that's relying on you, it's a different level of responsibility. So that was a big one for me.
Wow. I just need to, I'm going to have to put that on repeat. I'm going to have to tweet that. The easiest person to give up on is ourselves. But when you have a kid, it's a whole different responsibility like that. Put that on a t-shirt because that is so true, man. Hector Santiesteban, this has been a great conversation, man. I appreciate you being on the show, bro.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. And I'm going to have to recap some of the topics and some of the tips that we hit along the way, because I think a lot of folks probably were just sitting captivated. I was kind of keeping notes along the way, but in service of others, kind of where we started is a lot of us find ourselves in service of others, wanting to be in service of others, getting fulfillment for that, but making sure that we're chasing the right fulfillment instead of those accolades and the bank accounts, the titles that honestly, quite frankly, could be fickle and short-lived. Why am I doing all of this? Man, life can get heavy at times. Life can really have its storms. We're either in one, just coming out of one, or just left one. But at the same time, in the thick of that storm, it can feel heavy at times, and we can question, what is it all for? And try and reconnect with our why. Being intentional with what we wish for, bro. That was huge, because it's not just be careful what you wish for, be intentional, understand why you want what you want, and then getting better at just being present, being there, and just kind of taking each moment. I love what you said about, hey, if your kid asks, why is it wet outside? Give the real answer. They're curious. They're trying to find, and you know that they always start with that why. And then being in the fire, man, Hector, I am so happy you and your wife still here with us today. And I can only imagine what you guys went through that pregnancy, but understanding going through that fire, making it through together, and then seeking validation from ourselves, not others, when it comes to parenting. Man, you touched on that too. Crafting kids' view of the world, understanding that they're always picking up on what we're saying, how we're presenting things to them, and also taking the opportunity to be present in the moment, and then not seeing the return in your lifetime, but you're producing for the world. Lose themselves in parenting. Make sure you don't lose yourself in parenting, and don't tell your kid they're the reason that you didn't accomplish your goals. No kid wants to hear that. But then having a kid being life-changing, and the easiest person to give up on being yourself. So, of course, having a kid, you can't give up on them. And I encourage you guys listening, don't give up on yourselves, because you can be your best selves before kids come into the picture if you're not a parent yet. But you could also still become your best self in front of your kids, and then show them how it's done so they can follow suit. Hector, this has been amazing. I appreciate you. To the audience making it to the end, I thank you and appreciate you each and every single time. You already know what I'm going to ask for. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for a new episode each and every single week. And the best compliment you can give us not only is leaving a rating, but share this with a friend you think can get value from it as well. With that being said, guys, thank you for the time. And as we always say at the end of the episode, is everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without first the pain. Let's grow. Let's get past it today.